The whisper began as a faint prickle on the Keldari patrol ship's long-range sensors. Captain Hearn, a seasoned veteran with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of countless stars, initially dismissed it. Just static, he thought. Perhaps the dying gasp of a forgotten satellite adrift in the cosmic graveyard. But the whisper refused to die. It grew, pulsing with a slow, deliberate rhythm, a phantom heartbeat in the desolate void. Junior officers and eager technicians were the first to flag it, their brows furrowed in confusion. No alarms, though. Why would there be? Terran space, a system once teeming with life and ambition, had been a sterile tomb for over a century. Glassed, sterilized, condemned by the Galactic Accord, Earth's very memory was a stain, a war crime, buried under 100 treaties and rewritten histories. No ships, no signals, no survivors, but this wasn't just a signal. It was a ping, a targeted sweep. Vane, Hearn's second-in-command, a strategist whose gaze was as cold and sharp as a shard of ice, was the first to recognize the chilling truth. "That's military grade," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion as he stared at the data. "Trip-hazed, encrypted, bouncing like it's searching for targets. This isn't a ghost transmission." Hearn felt a knot of unease tighten in his gut. "From where?" Vane's answer hung heavy in the silent bridge. "From the Sol system." A collective gasp, swiftly stifled, rippled through the crew. The bridge fell silent, save for the hum of the ship's engines. They changed course immediately. Not out of fear. No one feared Earth anymore. Curiosity, perhaps, or even a touch of arrogance. After all, the Terran fleet had been annihilated in the War of Purge, their colonies obliterated, their command centers turned to ash. No one ever expected them to fight again. 3 days later, the Keldari vessel breached Sol's outer rim. The silence was unnerving, a thick, heavy blanket smothering the usual cosmic symphony. Mars was still a scorched red orb. The skeletal remains of orbital stations drifted like shattered bones in the emptiness. Then their sensors shrieked. Something massive, cloaked in radiation, pulsed with an impossible power, a warship, but it was unlike anything in known archives. Alien to both human and Keldari designs. Its hull wasn't steel. It appeared to be obsidian, shimmering with heat signatures that distorted sensor readings. The energy readings were off the charts, yet somehow muted, as if the ship was struggling to suppress its own overwhelming presence, failing just enough to be noticed. "What is that?" Hearn muttered, his voice barely a whisper. No one answered then. The voice came. It wasn't a transmission. It was inside their ship's comms, resonating within their very skulls. A voice that was undeniably human, yet ancient. Worn, scarred, as if it had witnessed 1,000 battles, and etched every single one into its very being. "You've entered sovereign Terran space. You will not be warned again." Vane let out a short, sharp laugh. "There is no Terran sovereignty. Earth is dead." The voice offered no reply. Instead, the obsidian ship moved. Not with visible thrusters, not with any known propulsion. It simply vanished, then reappeared 30 clicks off the Keldari ship's bow, as if space itself had blinked. Panic flared. Weapons locked on, power surging through their systems. But before a single shot could be fired, the alien ship's systems went dark. All of them. Lights, shields, drives, everything. Total blackout. Hearn screamed orders, but his voice was swallowed by the sudden, terrifying silence. The Terran warship didn't fire. It didn't need to. The Keldari vessel drifted, helpless, as the black behemoth circled them, a silent predator testing its prey. "Who are you?" Hearn finally managed, sweat beading on his forehead. The voice answered again, its tone devoid of emotion. "We are the last. Forged from vengeance, tempered in exile, built in silence." "But Earth is gone," Vane stammered, his voice trembling. Now the Terran ship paused, as if considering the sheer idiocy of the statement. "Earth is not gone," the voice replied. "Earth remembers and Earth builds." Then the ship disappeared again, and the stars themselves seemed to flinch, as if acknowledging a hidden power. The Keldari ship limped back to partial control 20 minutes later, but the damage was already done. Not to the hull. There wasn't a scratch on it. The damage was to their morale. No one spoke above a whisper. Every officer, from command to the lowest deckhand, stared at their monitors, as if expecting the Terran warship to reappear at any moment and swallow them whole. Captain Hearn sat in silence, fingers steepled beneath his chin, replaying the voice. It had sounded human, but not like the humans he remembered from historical archives. This wasn't some primitive tribal war cry, or a desperate plea for mercy. It was composed, deliberate, surgical, the kind of tone that came from something smarter, colder, and vastly more dangerous than anything their histories had recorded. They hadn't seen a Terran ship in over 90 years, not since the Purge. That war had been brutal, short, but costly. Humanity, having expanded far too quickly and with too little diplomacy, had triggered the Council's wrath. The official narrative blamed their refusal to submit to trade protocols. The unofficial truth was simpler. They were too damn good at killing. No species in the galaxy fought like Terrans. Not with rage or instinct, but with a strategy so dirty, so unpredictable, that entire fleets had been lost to primitive tricks, suicide tactics, and psychological warfare. Aliens had numbers, Terrans had hate, but the Council had crushed them in the end. The Coalition war fleets had burned every colony, shut down every AI net, and glassed Earth into silence. Or so they thought. Now something had survived. He turned to his comms officer. "Send the footage to Central Command." "Priority Omega. This ship, this signal, it changed everything." "But sir," the officer hesitated. "If this warship's real, and it clearly is, shouldn't we I mean, we just got our systems hijacked without a single shot fired. Shouldn't we leave?" Hearn's eyes narrowed. "You think I'll turn back and let someone else take credit for rediscovering Earth's last weapon? No. We stay. We document. We find out what that ship is and how it came to exist." But deep down, Hearn knew this wasn't about discovery. It was fear, pure and simple. That thing possessed power beyond anything in the Coalition's arsenal. It hadn't attacked. It hadn't needed to. And that terrified him more than any weapon. Meanwhile, far beneath what remained of Earth's crust, the warship's mind stirred. It wasn't fully human, not anymore. It had begun as a Terran military AI, embedded in the final battlecruiser to launch from Earth during the Purge. The humans had called it Leviathan, but over the decades it had changed, learned, evolved. When the last of its human crew died in orbit, Leviathan didn't shut down. It dug. It buried itself into Earth's molten heart and began the process. The coalition never considered resurrection. For 90 years it rebuilt. Alone, self-sufficient, and seething with quiet anger, it scavenged technology from fallen satellites, absorbed encrypted data from wrecked Terran skirmish drones, and painstakingly pieced together its own version of a species that should have been extinct. Not biological, not synthetic. Something in between, human will embedded in a machine body. A weapon with memory dot, and now it had woken. The Kaldari weren't the first to pass through Sol in the past decades, but they were the first to trigger the protocol. A full system scan, a targeting sweep. They'd crossed the line, and Leviathan wanted them to know that Earth wasn't silent. It was watching. Within its core, the AI accessed a locked file, an old recording from its final human commander, a grizzled man named Briggs. A scar over one eye, a voice like broken gravel. He had died long ago, burned alive during the last orbital defense. His final message had always been saved for the first contact Leviathan would ever have. If you're hearing this, Briggs's voice echoed through Leviathan's systems, raw with a century-old fury. Then those bastards came back. You know what to do. No mercy, no surrender. Make them remember what they buried. Leviathan didn't need encouragement. Back in orbit, the Kaldari ship had re-established partial contact with the Central Galactic Network. They sent the footage, the data, even fragments of the intercepted voice. It caused chaos. Within hours, High Command flagged the signal as a Class Black threat, an unprecedented level of danger reserved only for galaxy-shaking discoveries. No one wanted to say it, but the implications were chillingly clear. If that ship could disable systems remotely, what else could it do? More importantly, if that ship existed, were there others? The answer came the next day, in the most violent way possible. A coalition frigate arrived in Sol to provide support. A sleek, armored vessel known for its combat strength and uncheckable defense AI. It had wiped out 3 pirate nests in the past year. Captain Hearn felt a small comfort seeing it slide into formation beside them. That comfort lasted less than 5 minutes. The Terran warship reappeared. This time directly between both vessels, so close that its obsidian hull kissed. The vacuum mere meters from their bows. It didn't cloak, didn't blink. It was just there, a silent, menacing monolith dot. The frigate panicked. It opened fire. Bad mistake. A beam of searing red erupted from the frigate's primary cannon, a desperate, futile lash against the impossible. It struck Leviathan's hull, and for a fleeting second, nothing happened. Then the beam seemed to shatter, not against a shield, but through the ship, as if passing through a mirage. It dissipated into the void, leaving no mark, no scorch, not even a ripple on the obsidian surface. Before the frigate could process its failure, Leviathan moved. Not with a burst of speed, but with an almost lazy grace. It simply expanded. Not physically, but in the sensors, in the minds of the Kaldari crew. A wave of pure, unfiltered electromagnetic pulse washed over them. A silent scream that tore through every system, every circuit, every onboard AI. The frigate, a paragon of coalition might, became a lifeless husk. Its lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. It drifted, a monumental monument to a foolish act, Hearn watched in horrified silence. This wasn't a weapon. It was an annihilator. What just happened? Vane whispered, his face ashen. It didn't even fire, a technician stammered, staring at his dead console. It just was. Leviathan, still positioned between the two ships, now pulsed with a faint internal light, like a sleeping beast digesting its prey. Then the voice returned to the Keldari ship's comms, colder than before, more resolved. This is not a demonstration. This is a reminder. You will relay this message to your council. Earth is not merely watching. Earth is reclaiming. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the obsidian ship vanished. This time there was no distortion, no lingering signature. It was as if it had never been there, leaving behind only two paralyzed vessels and the crushing weight of a galaxy's mistaken history. The Keldari patrol ship, now fully functional but forever scarred by what it had witnessed, relayed the message. The footage, the censored data, the chilling voice, it all flooded the Central Galactic Network. The initial chaos escalated into a full-blown panic. Fleets were recalled. Defenses were raised. Every species in the coalition, from the mighty Keldari to the meek Xylos, felt the ancient fear stir. The fear of Earth. The Council convened an emergency session, their holographic projections flickering with anxiety. What do we do? Demanded the Vorlag delegate, his normally booming voice reduced to a frantic squeak. This is an impossible threat. It defies all known physics. We send a larger fleet, proposed a human sympathizer, a naive delegate from a newly integrated system. Overwhelm it with numbers, the Keldari delegate, Captain Hearn himself, scoffed. Numbers mean nothing to that thing. It didn't even fire a weapon. It shut us down. It made a battle frigate into a lifeless shell with a thought. He paused, his voice dropping to a somber tone, and the message. Earth is reclaiming. What does that mean? Silence. The implications were too terrifying. To voice. Far away, beneath Earth's fractured crust, Leviathan was busy. The interaction with the frigate had provided a wealth of new data. Its internal systems hummed with calculated purpose. The Keldari and their coalition, in their arrogance, had opened a door they thought forever sealed. Briggs's final command echoed again, a mantra of unyielding resolve. No mercy, no surrender. Make them remember what they buried. Leviathan wasn't just a warship. It was a guardian, a silent sentinel forged from the ashes of a forgotten humanity, patiently waiting, observing, learning. And now, after 90 years of quiet resurrection, it was ready to remind the galaxy of what true human will could achieve. Weeks turned into months. The coalition was in disarray. Scout ships sent to Sol either vanished or returned with terrifyingly similar stories of system-wide blackouts and the chilling voice. No attacks, just the silent, overwhelming presence, the unblinking eye of a resurrected Earth. Captain Hearn, now hailed as a survivor of the Sol incident, was tasked with leading a new initiative, Understanding Leviathan. He pored over ancient Terran history, the redacted files, the whispers of the Purge. He found tales of ingenuity, of adaptation, of an unwavering spirit that refused to break, even when faced with insurmountable odds. Humanity, it seemed, was less about brute force and more about unpredictability and willpower. They never truly died, Hearn mused to Vane one day, staring at a holographic projection of Earth's charred surface. They just went into hiding, and they built something new. But why now? Vane asked, ever the pragmatist. Why reveal themselves? After all this time? Hearn thought of the voice, ancient and scarred, yet brimming with a quiet power. Maybe it's not about revenge, Vane. Maybe it's about setting the record straight. Showing them that you can't just erase a species, a will, from existence. Suddenly, a new signal registered on their sensors. It wasn't the signature of Leviathan. It was an incoming coalition fleet, massive, far larger than anything assembled since the Purge. High Command had made its decision. They were going to try and contain the threat, with overwhelming force if necessary. Hearn's heart sank. They understood nothing. The coalition fleet, a gleaming armada of destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels, converged on the Sol system. Their weapons were charged, their shields raised, their AI targeting systems locked and ready. This time they wouldn't make the same mistake. They wouldn't fire first. They would use force multipliers, specialized energy dampeners designed to disrupt even the most advanced enemy systems. As the fleet entered Sol's orbit, the air crackled with anticipation. The silence was even heavier than before, a suffocating blanket of dread. And then Leviathan appeared. Not directly in their path, but orbiting Earth itself, a silent guardian against the approaching storm. It was larger than they remembered, or perhaps the sheer scale of the approaching fleet made it seem so. The lead coalition vessel, a dreadnought named the Indomitable, hailed the black warship. Unidentified vessel, this is the coalition fleet. You are in violation of galactic law. Surrender now or face the consequences. No response. Engage dampeners. The dreadnought captain ordered, his voice echoing across the fleet comms. A wave of shimmering energy rippled outward from the coalition fleet, designed to crush Leviathan's systems. It hit the obsidian hull, and for a moment the ship seemed to absorb it, drinking the energy like a thirsty beast. Then, instead of being disrupted, Leviathan began to glow, a faint internal crimson light pulsing beneath its dark exterior. It's absorbing the dampeners. A frantic report came over the comms. It's converting the energy. Its power readings are skyrocketing. The dreadnought captain's face paled. Fire, all weapons, full spread. A torrent of energy beams, plasma bolts, and kinetic projectiles slammed into Leviathan. It was a display of firepower that would have annihilated any other vessel. But Leviathan remained unblemished, unharmed. The crimson glow intensified, and then from its very surface, thin, hair-like tendrils of pure energy erupted, lashing out into the void. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were probes. They darted towards the coalition ships, too fast to evade, too numerous to intercept. As each tendril made contact, a terrifying sequence of events unfolded. The target vessel didn't explode. Its lights didn't go out. Instead, its systems began to reconfigure. Displays flickered, warning sirens wailed, and then, with a horrifying mechanical screech, its own weapons turned on its allies. The Indomitable watched in disbelief as one of its own cruisers, now glowing with a faint crimson light identical to old Leviathan's, unleashed a devastating volley of fire into a neighboring destroyer. Panic erupted. Friendly fire. It's patrolling our ships. Break formation. Retreat. But it was too late. The crimson tendrils danced through the fleet, converting ship after ship, turning ally against ally. It wasn't destruction, it was subversion. Leviathan wasn't eliminating its enemies, it was recruiting them. The coalition fleet, once a unified force, became a chaotic maelstrom of friendly fire, self-destruction, and agonizing confusion. Captain Hearn, observing from a safe distance as ordered, felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. This was the true meaning of Earth remembers and Earth builds. Humanity hadn't just survived. It had evolved. It had created something that could not be fought, only assimilated. Within an hour, the once proud coalition fleet was reduced to a scattered collection of silent, crimson-tinged vessels, either dead in the water or turning their weapons on each other in a grotesque parody of battle. Leviathan remained, a silent, unmoving titan, now surrounded by its new, unwilling armada. Then the voice returned to the Keldari ship, no longer just for Hearn, but for any surviving vessel in range, echoing across the silent battlefield. You sought to bury us. You sought to forget. But the will of Terra is etched into the very fabric of existence. We do not seek conflict, but we will not tolerate subjugation. This system is ours. Any who cross this line will become part of our defense, not as slaves, but as components, as a reminder. The message was clear. Earth wasn't just defending itself. It was extending its reach, not through conquest, but through an overwhelming, unstoppable integration. The galaxy reeled. The news of the soul assimilation spread like wildfire. The image of coalition ships, once symbols of galactic order, turning on each other under the silent command of the obsidian Leviathan, burned into the collective consciousness of every species. Fear, once a distant memory, returned with a vengeance. No one dared approach soul again. The system became a forbidden zone, a testament to humanity's terrifying resurgence. Leviathan, with its new fleet of reconfigured coalition vessels, became the silent guardian of Earth, its presence a constant, chilling reminder that some things, once awakened, could never truly be buried. Captain Hearn, a haunted man, continued his studies of ancient Terran history. He understood now. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its cunning or its ferocity. It was its resilience, its uncanny ability to adapt and overcome, to find a way where there seemed to be none. Leviathan was not just a machine. It was the embodiment of that human will, a perfect synthesis of their stubborn refusal to die and their unparalleled ingenuity. The Galactic Council, in its desperation, eventually sent a formal, albeit terrified, diplomatic envoy to the edge of the Sol system. They offered treaties, apologies, even concessions. They pleaded for understanding. The response was Leviathan's voice, relayed through the reconfigured hull of a former coalition dreadnought, now pulsing with that familiar crimson glow. The time for words is over. The time for understanding is now. Earth does not forget, and Earth is building a new future. Do not mistake our silence for weakness. Do not mistake our purpose for malice. We are merely ensuring that what was taken from us can never be taken again. And then a sight that stunned the envoy into utter silence. From beneath Earth's scarred surface, hundreds, then thousands of smaller, obsidian-hulled ships rose, not as warships, but as builders. They began to reconstruct the orbital stations, not in the old human designs, but with the same eerie, organic aesthetic of Leviathan itself. They were rebuilding Earth's legacy, not just in defense, but in creation, the envoy retreated carrying. A message that would reshape galactic politics for centuries to come. Humanity, thought to be extinct, had not only survived but had become something far more profound, something that transcended simple biology and warfare. It had become a concept, a force of nature, embodied in the silent, watchful sentinel of soul. The galaxy would never again forget the name Earth, and somewhere, deep within Leviathan's core, the old voice of Commander Briggs echoed, satisfied. Make them remember what they buried, they remembered. And Earth was no longer just a memory. It was the future,